Well, welcome everybody to 2018, to the first Sandpile of the year. Thanks for coming out. And I'm just going to get right to it here. I'll wish you all a happy new year, of course. I hope you had a great holiday season. I call it Christmas. You call it whatever you want. We had a nice quiet Christmas and a nice safe New Year's. Wasn't too exciting, which suits me just fine. And we did get to see the grandbabies. And I just need to see the chat here. Can someone just confirm that you can hear me, please? Okay, thanks, Paul. All right, so just looking at system updates in the last half hour or so, there are a few things that you may have not have seen and that do require some action. It is the 4 on the top here under system updates. The first is removing Google reCAPTCHA version 1. And that's a Google thing. They've said that they are retiring the CAPTCHA version 1, so the Adobe team is making their updates to remove that possibility. And what they ask is that if you're using that on any of your forms, that you, I'm just to see who's talking here. If you're using CAPTCHA 1 on any of your forms, that you have it removed and updated by the cut date here, which is March 31st. Okay, and then the next one is this HSTS enforced for worldsecuresystems.com domain and subdomains. They're going to enforce all traffic onto the World Secure Systems domain over HTTPS starting January 15th, 2018. So if you are still accessing resources over HTTP, please update your site as soon as possible. So that date is coming up fairly quickly. If you need to do some work on that, of course. And the next one is updating the tell a friend functionality. I don't know that it's being used that much. I do know a couple of partners that I've talked to were using it. But again, as of January 31st, they're going to update the recommend to a friend functionality. So that instead of using a web form to collect and send the notification emails, it will use their default email client. So again, they're going to remove the recommend to a friend system confirmation page, update the tell a friend system email layout, so it's no longer includes the from email address, et cetera, et cetera. So again, they ask you to, if you're using that functionality, you make the updates that are required by the end of January. And finally, the deprecating the form to email functionality, and same thing. They're asking that you update your web forms to use form process v2 ASPX before the end of January here, where you could find yourself with something that doesn't work. Outside of that, it looks like they finally got this system 229 update in. Oh, went too far. So it does look like this went in on the 6th of December. Fixed some bugs. Mostly the one that was most of interest to me was this multiply getting kicked out from admin all the time. And they felt that they made some changes that would take care of that. Now you can go and read the long string here. In some cases, some folks don't necessarily believe that it's happened. What they're pointing to is it's cookie based, and it is the number of sites you access because they're all world secure systems. Apparently there's a limit on the number of cookies that can be stored, and this is what's getting you kicked out. So they've made some changes to migrate. What do they say here? They're limiting the number of cookies per site, and following the release, they're transitioning from user preferences saved in cookies to user preferences saved in a database and cached. So they're hoping that with all that, that is going to reduce or remove this problem entirely. I will say so far today, I have not been kicked out once. So maybe they've got it this time. Yeah, long name, who I don't know, says wondered why they could not just remap the #1 to the #2 version, since all we set up is the module call. And I see you're still getting kicked out. I don't know that they can just arbitrarily go in and and do something with capture version 1, because in some cases, I know even I do it sometimes. I'll take the module and I'll get the output from it, and I'll re-put that on the page if I want to customize it a little bit. So it may be that they're just a little fearful of doing it that way. Also, in some cases, it can break the layout. The reCAPTCHA version 2 is a different size, and I know if I try and put that into a sidebar, I know in particular I've had some difficulties with that and had to fuss with it. So I just to get to it, I just went to the BC page, to the menu, to resources, and then I went to forums and system update information. So that's how I got there, Barbara. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, so Mike is saying he's still seeing it a lot. So perhaps it's an over time thing, and we've got to wait for them to propagate these this change from cookies to a database, and give it a bit more time. We'll see what happens. I was looking at the blog. There wasn't a whole lot. There was one post in December. If you haven't seen it, looks like Omar from CBO wrote a post on enabling multi-channel digital success in the era of rapid transformation. I admittedly did not read it, but I thought I'd point it out because there hasn't been a lot of activity in their blog. So that one coming out in December, just thought you might be interested in that. Looking at the BC App Store, we do have, this was mentioned last time, but this release of the automatic backups. So there's 3 versions. There's automatic backups Lite, per site, and then unlimited. So you can go there, have a look, and take your pick. And watch last Sandpile, the one just before Christmas, watch the recording where Joe was kind enough to give us a bit of an overview and an update on that one. Yeah, Bill, I seem to switch to the incognito or whatever. That does help it a little bit, but I don't necessarily like running in incognito. No particular reason other than I don't necessarily like the browser Chrome. So maybe that's why. But that does seem to solve the bulk of it for me. I just don't think we should have to do it. So the App Store, that's fine. On BC Guru's tutorials, the last one to be released was Unlocking the Mysteries of Web App Search. And that was a nice series by Scott. So I read that. I went through that myself and quite enjoyed it. And I'll just point that out in case you haven't had a chance to get to it. Still tutorial or to template wise, that's this Fashion Shop was the latest template that's been released there. That is one that I coded myself, actually. I coded these last 4 templates. So if that gives you some confidence, great. And if you have any questions, I can do what I can to try and answer them. And on the BC Academy, Scott Scheffer did an interesting tutorial on the JSON equals true parameter and a glossary terms tooltip use case where he shows how he used that JSON equals true to make a nice custom tooltips glossary output. So I watched that too. That was pretty cool. But today we're here to talk about the whole map thing. So using web apps to output markers on a Google map. And in particular, the one thing I want to make sure I covered was showing up in the ocean just off the coast of Africa. So this is an example of what that looks like. In this case, this is the BC Sandpile site. I'm on the partner search page, and this is my dot. So you can see I have my name in here. There's only the one result here. And I purposely did not enter my postal code correctly, so the system does not know where I am. And when it doesn't know where you are, it puts you this marker, the marker for you, outside of the coast of Africa, which makes me a little bit crazy. So I thought I'd cover some of the things that we did on the BC Sandpile site to resolve that, and then I might give you some ideas for working with it yourself if you're having that issue as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you what's going on here. So I'm using on this particular page, we're using this EasyMap, easybcmap.js that Joe Watkins wrote some time ago. It's been a couple, maybe even 3 years, and I've used it on several sites and found it quite useful and fairly easy and straightforward to get working. So he's got a whole tutorial series here on BC Gurus. If you just search responsive Google Maps, it should come up for you. And he talks about, he does an overview of it. He shows you the HTML. He shows you the jQuery. He shows you how to output your web app using this tool. Talks a little bit about Google Map accuracy, and then finally installing the plugin. And that is frankly where I got most of my information for getting this to work. So in the end, this particular widget that he's built is looking for a list here that it's actually normally hidden. Sorry. Yeah, locations. So there's an unordered list called locations. And that's what this map, that's what his jQuery widget is looking for to plot these markers on the map. And you'll see here that there's an LI with a data dash lat and a data dash long. And it's missing because I purposely misled the system there. So if I go back here and enter my correct postal code, yeah, zero latitude and the longitude is a popular place. Or if you're Jimmy Buffett, it's changes in latitude, changes in attitude. Right, so now I've entered my postal code. That's fine. If I do a refresh here, and this is an Ajax map, so it should update, no problem. And you will see that magically I'm in the city of Kelowna up in Canada. Here, I'll zoom right out so you get a feel for where I'm at. Farther, 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 farther. So that's me. I'm out close to the west coast of Canada, and I'm no longer in the ocean just off of Africa. And that works for the most part. That works quite well for the most part. But even with zip codes, sometimes the system does not know where you are. So what we did on the Sandpile is we allowed an override for Google Latitude and Google Longitude. So if you find, even with your postal code, you're still being marked in the wrong place, you can go get your latitude and longitude, manually enter it, and then that's what the system will use. That's what our output will use to show you on the map. Now, there's a few places to get that, but I find it's easiest just to put your city and postal code in Google, and assuming you come up in roughly the right area, your latitude and longitude are up in the URL up top there, and you can just grab them from there. Now, I think there might be another tool. Google Map. Yeah, they got degrees. There used to be a tool a while back where you could enter your address and it would pop those back out for you. But it is relatively easy just to get it out of the URL up top here. The first one is your. I've been saying it, latitude and longitude. I forget which is which. Yeah, the 49 is my latitude. The minus 119 is the longitude. And once you have those, you can just plug them in here. Let's see if it'll let me copy and paste this. Submit that. And now when the system is outputting my results on that map, it will use those. Now, because mine was correct, I'm still going to be in the same spot. But that is the way we found that we could override any errors that we were seeing and keep people from showing up out in the ocean off the coast of Africa. So that particular search form is, as I said, is Ajax based. So we send you to this partner search results site from the form's action URL. And on that page, we take the module web app results, and maybe I can make that a bit bigger for you. We take the module web app results, render it as a collection. We get the max results per page, and we throw it in a collection called partner profiles. And then I just loop through them. So in the first case, I'm looping through to output the left-hand side. And I'm just going to clear this search. So that's everybody. And I haven't found a way to fix that so that it zooms properly when there's all those results in there. But so if anybody knows how to do that. Oh, see, there's still somebody off the coast of Africa. Now, who is that? Interesting. That wasn't there a couple hours ago, so maybe he just put his stuff in. Anyway, the first part of it is, let me just refresh this page. The first part of that code I was showing you outputs the left-hand side. So that's this first part of the for loop. And then we get down to the bottom, I do the web app search results for map is the name of the div that I'm outputting stuff in. And I just simply loop through that same module search results. And I say if item.google-latitude is not equal to blank. So what does that mean? It means if there's a value in this field, then I want you to output that list item and use those two terms. Data lat is equal to item.google-latitude. Data long is equal to item.google-longitude. Otherwise, and this is the key for, supposedly the key for keeping people out of the African Ocean there, ocean off of Africa. This else if item.latitude. So if it typically when BC does not know where you are, it just outputs blank for your latitude. And so we were capturing this and then not outputting that list item if there was not a value in there. So I'm kind of surprised that that fellow showed up there. Let's have a look at it. So NSAU, that might be why. Thanks, Mike. If Mike is saying that that's not a valid, would that be country or state or something? All right, so he has not entered much information there. So I could go after the fact and look him up and see. And it might be as simple as he put in some values, but not all of them, and he's faked it up enough where it thinks it knows where it is, but it doesn't really output something, I guess is what I would really say. I'm disappointed because that has worked good for a long time. So LU, unless there's two there, maybe there's two there. No, I don't see it, so let's try Donald. So maybe he put a postal code in, maybe not. Let's have a look. So if I go here and have a look at that results. Yeah, there's definitely no latitude or longitude being output, so I'm not understanding why his marker is showing up. Maybe something else going on there. Well, I'm not going to solve it right now. I can only tell you that 2 hours ago, there was nobody sitting in that specific spot. So I'll have to go look at his record and see if I can figure out why he's actually showing up with a marker there, because he shouldn't be. Interesting. A fresh challenge for 2018. Yes, thanks, Paul. Bill says, for the USA, rapidly growing areas will get new zip codes and they will get the Africa issue for months until the USPS and BC get coordinated. That is true. So it's valid to have some kind of a bypass like this where, as I say, it's worked fine for years, where it just doesn't output that marker on the map. because it's confusing, and it stacks them all in the same place there. We've had it before where there's been 20 items there sitting on the map, so it's confusing. Not sure what Mary wrote there. Is a bunch of abbreviations which don't make sense to me, so I'm not much of a texter, so you're gonna have to spell it out for me, Mary. Sorry. Again, I'll go look at his record when it's not on screen, so everybody can see what he's entered there, and maybe I'll figure out what's happened there. So that's the bulk of it. Really, it was a combination of the two, using that EasyMap to get a nice map output, and then in my Webapp search results, just a simple, really relatively simple. Once we found it, a relatively simple liquid loop, and looking for that value. Maybe let me try this. All right, cross your fingers. Yes, that was it. So no longer sitting in the coast of Africa there. So the trick is, and sorry, I should have caught that earlier. I had an else if item.latitude, which simply says, is it there? It doesn't really check to see if it's got a value. This was some early Liquid programming before we learned that you have to have and item.latitude is not equal nothing. So there you go, problem solved, Paul. 2018 is off to a raging start. So I'd be interested to know if anybody else out there is using a web app output onto a map. Are they using that functionality, or are they just doing something different? No, nobody yet. So maybe it's not as common as I thought it might be. And Bill says he had a client making heavy use of it. Frankly, I've used it on maybe 3 or 4 projects, which isn't really a lot. But when I have used it, and I've used that EasyMap technique, boy, it's been I've been happy with it. It works out really well. Now, because that plugin is a few years old, man, a guy should actually talk to Joe Watkins and see if he'd be willing to update it with the latest API code and stuff, and see if there's some advantages to that. But even so, it's still even so, it works great. Yeah, Paul, I'm kind of with you. I'd love to be able to customize that map a bit further. I did notice the last time I copied and pasted or embedded a Google map, they seem to have done something with the mobile view. So it right away pops up if you're looking at it on a phone or a tablet. It says use 2 fingers to scroll. So I'm not sure how many of you have had that problem where if you made the map too big, we ran into BC Growers templates all the time. If we made the map big, and someone would try and scroll down on a phone, and as soon as you hit the map area, your finger would scroll the map. You couldn't scroll the page anymore. So they seem to have resolved that in their latest embed code, where it pops up, an overlay pops up and says you must use 2 fingers to move the map. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if I have an example of that just yet here. So I'm just looking to see if I have an example I can show you, but I don't think I do. Yeah, the only one I can bring to mind is a site that I'm working on, which hasn't been released, and I'm probably not good for me to reveal who that client is at this particular point in time, in this form anyway. So Barbara says she can't center the pins in a mobile size for the maps. Is that even after you've done a refresh, Barbara? Does it recenter for you? And Mary says she has some CSS used on all projects to make Google Maps responsive. Yeah, if you're using Foundation or Bootstrap, they have an embed container that you can throw your map inside, and that works quite well. But if you're not using those frameworks, then having your own code is quite handy. Yeah, I don't have an answer for you, Barbara. If the pin is not centering, I found just usually refreshing has done it. And the only thing I could say, unless someone here has an answer for you, is to point you to the to Google's Maps docs, which is good for an afternoon of entertainment, unfortunately. But so unless someone here might have an answer for you. Wait, see if anybody types it up here. All right, well, while we're waiting for an answer to see if someone has an answer for Barbara, does anybody have something else they'd like to discuss today? Yeah, Barbara, that's, I mean, the pin centering should be a result of the API or the embed code from the Google side. It shouldn't be affected by CSS. Unless you've specifically put some CSS on the page to affect it, but then I'm assuming you would know you've done that. So, boy, anytime I've done it, it's been just fine, and it's centered. I'm just going to go double check that site I was looking at because there was a pin on it. All right, so it's in the center. So I can't show it to you. Make it look like it's on a phone. Then it's in the center. So for me, Barbara, it is moving to the center. When I resize the screen, just hit refresh, and that pin is going right back to the center of the map output. So I'm not sure why you're having trouble with that. What is that, Jack? Oh, this EasyMap? I'm not sure what value there would be in that, but just because the tutorial's already there and it shows you step by step how to do it. So I'm not sure. I'll think about it though. You'd almost have to have a theme that was focused around where it made sense to have some map output, but. Just checking one here that I thought might have it, but maybe it didn't. Yeah, I thought maybe there's a real estate template. I thought that might have an opportunity for it, but you'd really have to have the address and the postal codes. And I think that's might be the pot shops in the US. Thanks, Jack. I think that might be the issue is for templates, for test data, we often don't have enough addresses to kind of make that make sense, but not that we couldn't necessarily grab some. Interesting thought. Now, I don't know for sure. I know it's legal in some spots in California there, although it's only some jurisdictions, I guess. They were showing that in the news last night. So I don't know if that's just California or is that stateswide? Does anybody know? Nobody. All right. Well, again, does anybody have anything else they want to talk about today? So Bill's done the Google addresses for college libraries, which that's an interesting way to go because there's no real reason why you couldn't use those, and that would be a good solid test case because of they're all over the place in the States there, so that could be cool. So Mary tried. She had a case for it, and she tried this map app, but it didn't really work. And it's not much beyond what I showed you, Mary. Is just using that EasyMap.js. I got it installed on the page, and I say the code was that I used was really quite straightforward. It's an Ajax web app search, and I just loop through the output, and I'll put it in the list that this EasyMap is looking for, and just use data lat, data long. That's included in the search results by BC, and then if it's not there, then I look. Well, first I look to see if someone's overridden it. That's in the web app itself, and then if it's not there, then I look to see if Adobe's provided it, and then if they didn't provide it, well, then I just don't output that marker. Does that make sense? So Laura says, here's my silly question of the day. How do I update copyright in workflow? You mean the workflow email? Update the copyright? Yeah. Let me see if I can find that for you. All right. Maybe I'll just share my screen here again. So looking at it here, I went to, from the developer view, I went to layouts, outbound emails, workflow notification.html, and then I'm assuming this is what you're trying to update here down around line 114. Okay, Happy New Year, Bill. So to get that code, it's, I didn't mean to do that. It's on BC Gurus, and if you just search for, I think, EasyMap or responsive map. There you go. So I'll pop that into the there you go, Mary. Now, Laura, did that answer your question about where to update the copyright in workflow emails? Just trying to catch up on what was in the chat there. Okay, Rich, see you later. That's per site, Laura. That email is would have to be updated per site. Assuming that's the copyright that you're trying to update. Now that said, I don't know, there should be no reason why you couldn't. I'm just looking through my code here to see if there's anything specific to this site. And there's really no reason why you couldn't just copy and paste that and then upload, copy, paste, upload, copy, paste, upload. So it shouldn't be too bad. I'm just trying to check I got a laptop sitting on the side that shows me what you see. I'm just trying to see how I can make it so you can see anybody but me. I see. So that's to get that, you have to click on gallery view on your end, and then that gives you the multi-panel look where you can see other folks besides me. So Mike is asking about documentation for the e-commerce tags and the accompanying JavaScript that goes on behind the scenes. I have not seen that myself. Does anybody else seen that? I every time I need to work on something there, I got to go look at a previous project or ask one of my peers or do pretty much what you're doing. Has anyone found any documentation for e-commerce sites particularly for the JavaScript stuff? I know too, Mike. I've used module data sometimes to get around that, and it worked, but it can cause its own issues because those tags and the accompanying JavaScript stuff that they add does some things. When you try and replicate that with module data, unless you're aware of those things, you can wind up in trouble. So I wouldn't suggest it for anything other than a relatively simple site. That's a good point, Paul. You may not be able to use that liquid code in the email. Yeah, you'd have to test that one to know for sure. But I think are you right? I'm not sure. You'd have to try it and see. The fallback for that, I guess, would be to put in a content holder. And even then you'd have to test that. I think a content holder would work. And then at least it's relatively easy to update without having to go into the develop tab. Yeah, thanks, Laura. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm kind of tired myself. I don't think I'm running out of juice here. I don't have much else to say. I started up working on the projects I was working on before Christmas this morning, so it always takes a little while to get back in the groove and figure out, well, where was I? Where did I leave off? Oh yeah, okay. No, I'm not saying that, Paul. I'm saying just put the date in a content holder, and then put the content holder in the email. I think the content we have to test it both ways. But if the liquid doesn't work, the content holder might work, and outside of that, then you just hard code in the date. Anybody making any big changes this year to start the year off? Yeah, hiring a developer or hiring a sales team or doing any of those kind of things? That seems to be a common thing, although not many people are actually hiring devs. They're hiring it out or contracting it out, from what I'm understanding. Anyway, it can be you have to have enough work to justify a full-time developer for sure. Yeah, I kind of read that too, Paul. That whole HSTS or delivering it over World Secure Systems, and I kind of glossed over it because I'm not 100% sure what needs to happen there. So if it was Kristen wrote that, so if you're concerned and you think you might have a site that needs some work on that, maybe send Kristen an email. He doesn't mind getting them, and just ask him for some clarification. Laura, one thing you might want to try, if there's an arts school in your area, you may be able to get a student or someone who's just graduated out of a graphic design program, and maybe get access to a graphic designer that way, and get somebody young, fresh, and new with the latest skills and all that stuff. I say that not knowing where you live, of course. But. Well, if no one has anything else, I'm happy to hang out a little bit more and see if anybody else has a question. But feel free to call it closed and close it out for the evening, and carry on with whatever you got going on next for the day or for the evening. And if you didn't catch it, Laura, there's Mary indicates that they do graphic design, and she's listed her website there for you. I'm not sure, Jack. I'm not doing the next one, so that's why I'm not sure. And I think they're talking about near the end of the month here. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it is something along the lines of a back to the basics. Or if you look in previous releases, there's the like the bootstrap template and then the foundation template, where they're using really just the straight foundation components, and it's meant to be like a starting place for folks. So I believe that's what they're going to do with foundation as the latest version of foundation as the core for that. Okay, see you, Paul. Thanks. Okay, unless anyone else has a last minute question here, I'm just going to call it, and we'll see you next week. And I hope you have a great start to the new year.